Hello. What you're looking at is a what's called a line printer made in the mid-70s by a company called Tally Corporation. It was made in the state of Washington, I believe. It prints 200 lines per minute. And the paper is this wide. It's 132 characters in width, and it's fan-fold paper. So there'd be a big box of this paper sitting below it. The box is like that. And it just feeds the paper through in one long strip, kind of like toilet paper. It's all hooked together. And it's this wide. And it was used in auto parts stores. This particular printer was used in auto parts stores. It could have been used anywhere, but Triad Corporation, that made auto parts stores computers, bought this from Tally and used it to print out inventory and accounting reports and such. The paper, which unfortunately I don't have any, would come up and run through what are called these tractors. As you can see, when the tractors would turn, the paper would come up. The way it prints is something pretty strange, and unfortunately the printer seems to be kind of a dead dog right now, so I can't even make it power up. But the way it would print, remember, it's 132 characters wide. There'd be 132 little, there's 132 little fingers sticking up down here, little tiny things. And on the tip of each finger is a little nub, a little protrusion on each finger. So think of a comb this wide, 132 tines of the cone with a little nub on the end of each tine. So the way this would work, you'd have the paper here. Turn this around. The paper is like this. Here's your little tine of the comb, and in between these two, you would have the ribbon. The ribbon. The way it works, here's the paper, here's the comb. Behind the comb are electromagnets. So the electromagnet would pull the finger back and let it go, and it'd whack into the paper through the ribbon. And you're thinking that only makes one dot. Well, that's true. But remember that the paper is moving up all the time, and that comb is moving sideways. And I believe it made characters that were, I think, 5 by 7 dots. So you'd have 5 dots wide, 7 dots high. So the comb would move like this, constantly whacking into the paper. The paper's moving up, and it could make characters. For instance, a 7 would be dot, 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 dot. Let's get in a little closer. Down in this area, or where the combs live, which honestly you really can't see if they're. If you look really close, you can see the tops of the comb. 132 characters. The electromagnets live in this black thing here, called a 6-pack, because there's 6 in each one. Underneath this board are the electronics that drive the electromagnets. So it's a bunch of chips and little transistors. We should be able to make the comb move sideways. There it goes. It moves like this. Up here is the power supply to this device. Not a whole lot on this board, to tell you the truth, just a few minor components. Straight below, underneath all the dirt, you can see a couple of big stud diodes. Transistors, there's a bridge, and big capacitors, and a very large transformer. over on the right side here are the circuit boards that run this printer. And the printer was extremely reliable, and I don't even recall ever replacing some of these boards. This board was made by Triad Systems. The other three were made by Tally. But they virtually never broke. I can't even remember their names. This is probably called an I/O board. If we take it out, all the chips are socket mounted, which made them easy for us to replace, us field techs. And it looks like the chips on Tally's boards are not socket mounted. This is kind of a freaky thing here. This is a paper tape. It's a continuous loop piece of tape. And what it did, it told the printer when it was time to do a line feed. In other words, when it was time to feed up to the top of the next sheet of paper. And it did that based on this tiny little hole right here. When that hole went under a sensor over here, you would know to scoot the paper up a little bit to get off the end of the previous page onto the beginning of the next page. So there you have it. 200 lines per minute. It was kind of loud, kind of clunky, it's awfully heavy, but extremely reliable. Thank you.